Is the Tekken community toxic? Before you even finish this video, right now, I want you to go down to the comments and tell me what your experience has been. Not what Twitter says, not what Reddit says, your experience, right? Engaging with the Tekken community, playing ranked, talking to other players, being in the Tekken lounge, playing in quick match, talking to other players, being around the sweat that comes with the game. Whether your experience has been positive, negative, frustrating, or even genuinely helpful, I want to hear it. I want to create a discussion, and I want to see what the general consensus is about the community, not the game. We have a very firm establishment on how we all feel about the game. I want to know about the community, the Tekken community in general. I'm not looking for arguments or hot takes. I'm not trying to proclaim any hot takes or anything. I'm just going to give my own personal opinion of the community and leave you guys to judge for what it is. I want to have a discussion, a real discussion, because I really enjoy reading the comments, and I want to see what the general consensus really is when people are honest about how this community makes them feel. I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments and let's talk about it. I want to start by talking about the good side of the Tekken community, because I genuinely think this part gets overlooked a lot. In my experience, the vast majority of the Tekken community is made up of really cool, knowledgeable people. Games like Tekken tend to attract players who really care about learning, improving, and understanding the game at a much deeper level. That's just basically how every single fighting game community tends to work. And you can really feel that with Tekken. With Tekken, is just that more pronounced. It's that deeper. There are a ton of helpful players who will go out of their way to explain certain matchups, obscure character tech, or things you didn't even know you were doing wrong. I've gotten genuinely good constructive feedback from people who clearly love the game and understand it at a high level, and I had very good conversations with people who really love the game. And beyond that, there are a lot of people who just love Tekken. It's their main hobby. They love the characters, the systems, the history, all of it. The passion shows up in a good way a lot of the time. You also have a ton of creators who are actively trying to promote discussion, growth, and a healthier community. They're not just complaining for the sake of it. They want the game to be better, and they want the people to enjoy it more. They want their game to just perform that much better. Even when people are frustrated with decisions made on the corporate side of things with Bandai Namco, how they choose to balance the game, how they treat the economy within the game with the battle passes and the fight passes, and the store, right? All those system changes that they try and do, a lot of creators, in spite of that, still try to bring some type of nuance, positivity, or some type of proper, healthy discussion into the mix, as opposed to just adding fuel to the fire and adding hatred, right? And honestly, the amount of educational content in this community is insane. You can look up a guide for almost any character, any matchup. You can look up any type of combo or combo routes for any character, and you're going to find an in-depth explanation with that character. You're literally going to find video thesis based on these characters, right? And these are people who have put so much time into the game and put so much love into it that it's wonderful if you're someone who is trying to learn how to play the game better or how to enjoy yourself better, right? And these people put so much time and effort into helping others learn. It's wonderful. Overall, I've had far more positive experiences than negative ones with the Tekken community. It can be wholesome, and it can be very funny and genuinely welcoming. And that's important to acknowledge before we start talking about the other side of things or any type of criticism. It's important that we acknowledge the good before we talk about the bad or the negatives. All right, now let's talk about some of the negatives, right? And this is when criticism turns into identity attacks, or they start getting a little bit too emotional. Like any other competitive game, has a very loud minority that really like to, they're very mean. Let's say it like that. They're kind of mean. Kind of mean-spirited people who they base their entire identity off of this game, right, and off of this franchise, and it comes from a place of love. It does. It really does. However, because the emotions are so strong, it ends up warping, right? And they start taking things a little bit too seriously, right? They start attacking people, genuinely attacking people for having opinions on a fucking video game, right? And there are certain things like character shaming, for example, saying that a certain character is carried, it's an easy character, you're trash for using that character. And that's perfectly fine, because again, in every single competitive game, be it a shooter, be it a MOBA, fighting game, does not matter. People are always going to shame you for your character. The problem comes when it's the level of the character shaming. Sometimes they tend to get carried away with said character shaming. It gets weird. People start acting very weird. It's very odd. You know, people start genuinely persecuting others because they play a certain character, right? I'm pretty sure characters like my own, Lars, Hwoarang, Xiaoyu, we can say Yoshimitsu, Victor. What other character gets persecuted a lot because they're clearly tailored towards beginners to the series? And on top of that, they tend to be very high in the tier list. And because of Season 2, these characters did blow up even more. So it is understandable why you'd get so mad. However, you have to understand, maybe these people picked the characters because they looked cool. They knew nothing of it. All right? They picked the characters because they look cool. And generally, when I play a fighting game, I play it because a character looks cool. I like the character. I don't care if they're viable or not. I don't care if they're strong in the tier list. I don't care about any of that. Does the character look cool? Does their story resonate with me somehow? I'm going to play them based off of this criteria. It's a very simple criteria. Do I like the character? Yes. Okay, I'm playing them. Do I not like the character? No. Not playing it. Simple as that. I have no reason to pick a character based off of the validation of a community. And this happens a lot with this community. People pick characters off of just like, ooh, am I going to get hated for picking this character? You should pick a character because you like the character. You can go to the Tekken subreddit and see the posts of people being like, can I play this character or am I going to get death threats? Am I going to get hated? And the comments, thankfully, are full of people saying you're going to get death threats either way, right? Does not matter, okay? Just pick the character you enjoy and have fun. Because at the end of the day, you paid to play the game. You get to choose whatever the fuck you want to do, right? And, you know, like I said, the character shaming is fine. Like I said, I feel like that's just part of trash talking, regular trash talking. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with it because I can admit that my character at the start of Season 2 was fucking busted. Halfway through Season 2, he was still fucking busted. And now, currently, he is still within range of viable to very strong. He is still within the top 10. He's still a strong character. He still needs to get nerfed. I will scream it to the moon. Keep nerfing my character because I don't care. Right? I genuinely do not care. I played Lars in Season 1. And that was when he was arguably in his worst state in Tekken 8. Like I said, like, who cares what character you're playing? Whenever I face a Hwoarang, at first, yeah, I get frustrated. When I face a Xiaoyu, when I have to deal with all these wonky, weird OP characters, when I have to deal with Brian, Alisa, Hwoarang, Xiaoyu back to back, right? When I have to deal with Victor, who else is a strong character? I mean, the entire cast, really. But when I have to deal with the really annoying knowledge-checky characters that I don't understand and that I haven't labbed, of course I'm going to get fucking mad, right? However, I'm not going to get emotional over it. I'm not going to put all my emotions into it. And I'm not going to shame the actual literal person for it, right? I'm just going to realize, oh, I got fucking washed, and I'm going to move on. Right? That is important. Do I rage? Yes, of course I rage. We're all human. Do I one and done? Abso-fucking-lutely I'm going to one and done. Right? There's nothing more gratifying than one and doneing people. Right? And going to take a piss because I am not going to shit myself or pee myself because you want me to run it back after I've been molding on the screen. Right? There is nothing wrong with the character that you play. Another thing is rank shaming. Right? People being like, oh, this is what Mighty Ruler looks like now in Tekken 8. Yeah. It is common knowledge that the rank system blows dick. That is quite literally how the rank system works currently. Where you basically have a lot of the middle ground players are now going to be in Tekken King, Tekken Emperor. This is where your intermediate Tekken is being played at. And then at Tekken God Supreme, you have slightly high intermediate. And then God of Destruction is when you're finally introduced to, like, okay, now you're playing pro players in their sub accounts, right? Now you're playing against streamers and popular people who play this game for a very long time. They've been playing this game for years, right? And that's perfectly fine, right? As long as you recognize that the rank system blows cock, there is nothing wrong with a mighty ruler uploading a clip and then you being friendly and being like, hey, like, this clip was funny for such and such reason. You can give constructive criticism and be incredibly funny and witty, right? But it walks a very fine line between that and being a dick. The loud minority is filled with a lot of loud people who don't really get that. They don't get how to be witty and funny. They're just dicks. It's fine to trash talk people because of their rank. However, shaming them for it and gatekeeping them, come on. Like, it gets to a point where, again, it ties back to tying your identity towards the entire game and tying your ego and sense of self to a little picture that depicts a certain rank, right? It ties back to that. Just because you are a higher rank than somebody else doesn't mean that you are better than them or that your opinion is more valid than them. However, it depends on what the opinion is on, right? Because let's say someone makes an opinion on the balancing of the game and they're a mighty ruler or a fucking Godyu, if that even exists anymore. If, of course, they make their opinion that way, then yes, of course, it's going to have less value than someone who's been playing the game for a much longer period of time. For example, I have around 1,000 hours in Tekken 8. My opinion on the balancing system would be a little bit better than someone who has 300 hours, 200 hours, right? The same way as someone who's been playing Tekken since Tekken 5DR, right? Or Tekken 3, right? Whatever opinion they have might be more valid than mine just because they just have much more experience than me on the topic. That is perfectly fine. But because you're a god of destruction, a Godyu of destruction, just because you have that neat little rank doesn't mean you can talk down on people or on opinions or anyone just because they want to express how they feel about a game. And note that they're expressing how they feel. It's an opinion that is never going to pass. It's a hypothetical. You can present it like a normal human being, right? And just talk to them, presenting a normal argument like, hey, this is a fine opinion that you have here, but however, right? And then you can present a proper counter argument to that. Or you can just tell them to fuck off. Like, really, it's really up to you. That's my take on it. And what I want you to take away from this is that it's not about the disagreement that you guys have. It's about how the disagreement is expressed. Like, it's perfectly fine to point certain things out. It is 100% fine and needed. However, it's how you go about it, right? There's a lot of emotion tied to that expression, to that disagreement. There's a lot of emotion and sense of identity tied to it. Again, it comes from a place of love and passion. It does. But you gotta learn to put things on a scale and realize, again, that, it's a game. And you're arguing with someone online about it, or you're trying to roast or hoist someone over it, right? And you don't know what this other person could be feeling. And that type of community, that type of vitriol, that amount of negativity or sort of like, of seethe can really scare away any type of new people that want to engage with your game. It could really hurt the environment of your game. This is coming from someone that's played MOBAs. All right? I used to play MOBAs. All right? I used to play a MOBA non-stop for like 2 to 3 years, and then I was healed. Okay? I'm telling you right now, this is a very slippery slope as a community. And I'm not saying that all of it is bad. Again, it's a very small minority. Okay, this is the part I find the most interesting, where the positives and the negatives in the community collide, right? Where the passion meets the fury. And that's the emotional side of Tekken, right? Because a lot of the time, rank stops being just a number, it becomes self-worth. I'm tying this back to the previous video that I made, where we need to detach our self-worth from the little rank that we have. And this is seen the most with newer players trying to break into that intermediate space, right? They're trying to talk about Tekken and join the Tekken community, right? These are players who want to feel accepted, who want to feel like they belong, but they get gatekept because of their rank or because of the character they play, and then they're dismissed, talked down upon, and not taken seriously at all, right? Like, it's pretty crazy. You know, it's a community that it's tight-knit. It's a very tight-knit community, and it's very accepting for the most part. A lot of the people is. But that group that takes the game a little bit more seriously tends to be a little bit more limiting, right? They tend to be more cut off from the others, right? In the comments of my last video, I saw people express themselves in ways that were honestly a little bit concerning, just a tad bit concerning, right? Not being dramatic, but just, just keeping it real. It's a little bit, a little bit concerning. People weren't just talking about Tekken, they were literally talking about themselves. They're using key terms or key terminology that would point towards their mental health. And that's when it stops being, I lost a match, or I lost a promotion, right? Or I got demoted, and it turns into I lost something about me. Rank starts to feel like a fucking caste system. And I know that sounds a little bit extreme, but when you read how people talk about it, it's hard not to see it, right? For some players, Tekken isn't just a hobby. It's tied to other failures they've experienced, right? In school, in work, in relationships. It attacks their confidence. It has to deal with having very low self-confidence. So when they demote, it doesn't feel like it's just part of the game. It feels like a personal attack onto them, right? And you can see it on how people talk about it, with anger, with hopelessness, with the anxiety, right? And that's also part of where character hate comes from. You lose to a character enough times, for example, Orang, whoever, and that frustration gets internalized. Suddenly, it's not just the character, it's the player, right? It's the idea of them. You start demonizing the people who play the game, and you start actually, attacking them in your head because you've taken it so seriously. And that is wild to me. That is genuinely crazy to me. I get it, because I too used to rage a lot. And I still do. I get mad as fuck, right? But I could get mad as fuck at a game and still talk to you and still look at you completely normally. But sometimes with these people, it doesn't feel that way. It generally doesn't feel that way. It's concerning. It's funny, but it's concerning, Especially when you pair that with the louder, more toxic side of the community. I'm not saying that it causes these feelings, but I do think it amplifies them. Since Season 2, I've seen a lot more comments that carry the sense of hopelessness. Understandable, Season 2 was a complete shit show, right? And it's just comments of just overall anger and vitriol towards any opinion that doesn't match their own, right? And I can understand where again, this comes from the love and passion that people feel towards Tekken. However, we need to tailor and control, we need to moderate, right, that level of anger and emotion, right? Because sometimes that anger could be misplaced. You could be sending that anger towards someone that, they don't know about it. They quite frankly don't know and don't care about it, and you're just wailing at people. I'm not trying to diagnose anyone. I'm not trying to make any crazy claims here. I'm just pointing out a simple pattern that I've noticed, right? That I've noticed with some of the comments and just my overall interactions outside of YouTube and in my own personal life and in my own in other accounts, in Reddit and in Discord and in whatnot, right? And I'm just asking if others see it too. I want to have discourse about it. I want to see it. Because if a game that we love is starting to affect people like this, I genuinely think it's worth talking about. It's worth, making a mention about it. So I'll leave that part to you. How should the community address this, if at all? I genuinely want to know, and I want to read your experiences. I want to see what you guys think. There's also something else that plays a big role here, and that's how platforms like Reddit, Twitter, and even YouTube as well amplify that negativity. A lot of the times those spaces end up functioning as echo chambers. There's so much doom posting, so much frustration, and so much emotional charge that it gets really exhausting. Trying to scroll through Reddit when season 2 was live was a nightmare, dog. It was an absolute nightmare. Halfway through it was still pretty bad, mainly because of all the doom posting. Like, you would get so depressed. You would unironically get so depressed from all the doom posting that you would see in Reddit, and then you would go to YouTube, and then you would just see more of the news in Tekken. It's just everything is going downhill. The fans are out there with their fires and pitchforks out. It's insane, and it's really hard to have any actual discourse when that's happening, right? When the panic is set, and it was pretty crazy to live through that. Anything that goes against the dominant narrative, anything that introduces nuance, tends to get punished, downvoted, dismissed, or just written off immediately. That was something that used to happen so much. Now there's a little bit more access to it, right? People are more willing to hear them out a little bit after the recent DLCs with Marizo, Armor King, and Fakum Ram. And I think out of all of them, in my opinion, Fakum Ram was the best out of all of them, because he has the most defined weaknesses out of all of the DLC characters. And Armor King and Marizo are technically in that lane. I haven't lapped them at all, and I have no prior knowledge of Armor King, so I can't really tell you with certainty if these other two characters are designed well. Marizo, I haven't been overwhelmed by her. She has to basically punish you to get her mix-up in, so, from what I understand. Regardless, that's besides the point. Now that those DLCs have passed, people are now more willing to hear people out on like what could be, but still a large portion, right, is still dejected, right? And that's also something that I want to be clear. I completely understand and relate with the people that are upset with season 2. It has been incredibly frustrating, and those feelings don't come from nowhere, right? Like, I know what that's like. Trust me, I do. It is frustrating. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, what are we actually doing here? How do we move forward as a community after everything that's transpired? Because when everything gets lumped together into this game is ruined, real discussion stops, right? You have valid criticism mixed in with things that have always been a part of Tekken, or things that honestly just come with the territory of playing this kind of game. You can poke fun of the people saying, hear me out, right? The little meme of like, just wait till next season, just wait till season 3 or wait till the next patch. You can make fun of the game that way, but still have a real discourse about the game and not be, just doom posting all the time. And when that happens, the good takes get buried. The thoughtful conversation never happens. And what floats to the top is just really anger repeated over and over and over again. Literally, like, every video is going to be the same take over and over again. And it gets really boring, really tiresome, very dry. And I feel like right now, currently, the Tekken landscape is kind of dry also because of that sentiment. Apart from the fact that the updates are just lackluster. There's just bad updates that don't change up the game in any meaningful way because they don't want to make any big changes while big tournaments are going on. In my opinion, that's kind of stupid, but it is what it is. When that anger comes out, and when that anger is what repeats the same narrative over and over again, that's where rank shaming starts creeping in as well. Character shaming, dismissing people's experiences instead of engaging with them. That's when the trash talking and then the infighting kicks in, as well as with, the negativity surrounded with the game. It's a looping effect. It's a vicious cycle of just abuse, of self-abuse with the community. I'm not saying that Reddit is toxic. I'm not saying Twitter is toxic, even though we all know it is. And I'm definitely not saying most Tekken players are toxic, because I genuinely don't believe that, right? Like I said, the majority of my experiences with Tekken have actually been really good, right? Have been really good. Then again, like I said, I come from hero shooters and MOBAs. So take that with a grain of salt, all right? I've been called slurs way too many times in those games. Very funny for me, but still, concerning. With the Tekken community, it's not so much as slurs as more of like attacks to the gameplay and then personal attacks to me because of my choices in character or whatever it may be. Very light, very minuscule things that really, like it's just very minor things that if you actually decide to conversate with these people, you actually get to know why they feel this type of way, right? At least if they're willing to have a conversation. Some people just throw out random hate for no reason, and that's part of the internet. That just is what it is, right? There's nothing we can really do about that one. What I'm saying is that when frustration gets amplified instead of processed, it creates an environment where discussion becomes really difficult. And I think that matters because these spaces influence how people feel about the game and about themselves more than we probably realize. All right, and now here we have the last thing that I want to talk about, at least for now, and it's probably the most important, is the difference between passion and toxicity. Because one thing is absolutely clear to me. Tekken players care deeply about this game. Let me repeat myself. Tekken players love Tekken. They care deeply about this game. There's a reason the joke exists that nobody hates Tekken more than Tekken players, and honestly, it's true because that frustration comes from love. People are passionate about this series. They've grown up with it. They've invested time, effort, and they put their identity into it. When Tekken changes, especially the way it did in Season 2, that passion doesn't disappear. It doesn't go nowhere. For some people, it turns into anger, and for a small but loud part of the community, the anger gets heavily amplified. Suddenly, all you see is negativity, post after post after post. And for players who just want to enjoy the game, watch gameplay, hang out with a streamer or creator, learn something new, that environment can feel extremely exhausting, being surrounded in that, right? Having the game surrounded in that. Is it warranted? Sure. But it comes to a point where we need to become conscious of what we're doing. And we need to understand this. Passion isn't a bad thing. Loving a game fiercely is not a bad thing. But when that passion goes unchecked, it can turn into hostility really fast. And when frustration doesn't have a clear outlet, it often gets redirected. Not at systems or decisions, but at other players, right? It's a vicious infighting abuse cycle. That's when people start tearing each other down, rank shaming, character shaming, arguing instead of listening, or just quite literally just dismissing, spreading hate and dismissing someone completely because of very minor things, right? And that's the part that doesn't really make that much sense to me, because at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason. We like Tekken. We enjoy Tekken. It doesn't matter if you started in Tekken 3, Tekken 5, Tekken 7, or Tekken 8. It doesn't matter if you're a casual or a pro level player or a tournament player or someone who just grinds ranked Tekken. Like, it doesn't matter. We all want the game to be good. We want it to grow. We want it to feel better than it does right now. And if Tekken 8 isn't doing that for you anymore, it's okay to walk away. Recognizing that something isn't making you happy and stepping back is healthy. I get that completely. But your frustration shouldn't turn into hostility towards the people who are still enjoying it. If there's one thing I will say definitively in this video is this: the Tekken community is passionate, talented, and full of people who genuinely love this game. What we do with that passion, whether it builds the community up or tears it apart, that's the part I think is worth talking about. Finally, if you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Whether you agree with me or disagree with the things that I said, I want you to go down into the comments and actually talk about it. Let's have a discussion. It's not about having an argument. It's not about winning any arguments, but it is about a community. And if you're not sure what to comment, I'll leave you with a few questions to think about. Do you think the Tekken community is toxic or just intense? Has ranked ever affected your mood or your mental health? Have you personally had more positive or more negative interactions with the community? And if you're still playing Tekken, whether it's Tekken 8, 7, or even an older game, what made you stay within the Tekken community and what made you stay with Tekken? I genuinely want to hear your experiences and your perspectives. And if, again, I repeat this, if you stayed this long, thank you for lending me your ear. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one.